WiMax and the spectrum. The WiMax folks are after a lot of spectrum. And I love doing these. These are Intel slides. So these aren't mine. These are Intel's. And you can see they want to use vacant TV channels. Somebody asked about white noise. White noise is if I have a broadcast on channel 14, UHF channel 14, and in that same city, channel 18 is used, that means that 15, 16, and 17 are unused. That's what they call white noise space. So both the Wi-Fi people and the WiMax people want to take that space, and they want to build smart devices that you can put in any city, and they will recognize what TV stations are on the air and what aren't, and they will use the white space in between them for unlicensed spectrum usage. Here's the lay of the land from Intel and what they want. They are going all over the world looking at what spectrum they can grab in 2.5. You can see them down in the 700, 800, 900, where they call it 4G WiMax down there, and then 4G WiMax up above. So they're looking at huge areas of spectrum that they think ought to be designated for WiMax. Meanwhile, most countries are saying, here's the spectrum. We're not dictating what the technology is that can be used on them, except in Europe. What Intel has said is their first chipset will support 2.5, 3.5, and this area of the unlicensed, this is where 802.11 Wi-Fi A, 802.11a resides, up in the 5 gigahertz band, and there's an end of it where you're allowed 4 watts of power, and so their chipset, which is going to be built into every notebook in the world and every consumer appliance in the world, if you believe them, is going to have 2.5, 3.5, and this 5.8 band in it. The WiMax community says we can cover lots of area with very few cell sites and everything else. Well, there are laws of physics, and you can't break the laws of physics. You can bend them a little bit, but you can't break them. This is a program that an engineer would use to fill out a initial cell site determination. How much will this cell site cover? And it gets very involved beyond here, and you fill it all out. And when you're all done, it draws all these nice curves. And you know what? When you build that cell site, it doesn't begin to match what the computer model said for lots of other reasons. And that's something that the WiMax community hasn't learned yet. So here's our technology roadmap. You can see that WiMax fixed. The early products were available in 2004, 2005. Mobile is just coming online now, 2007. It's actually a little later. The first commercial services, Sprint says they're going to have some real WiMax up. The earlier Clearwire stuff is not real WiMax, it's pre-WiMax. But Sprint says they'll have some up by the end of the year, this year, and into next year. This chart is talking about what it takes at each frequency band in the CapEx to build out spectrum and cell sites. So at 700 megahertz, this is where you are, and this is your radius per cell site, which is 10 kilometers. If you go down to 1900, which is where Sprint is, you'll see that the cell site goes to 5.5, and the CapEx increases to 328%. And then if you go to 2.5, you can see that your coverage is down to 4.7, and your CapEx is 455%. And then if you go to 3.5, you can see it gets even worse. So here's where typical commercial is at 850 and 1900. And this is where Sprint and Clearwire are playing. They have some major players. Intel is expanding its role. Does it compete with DSL and cable? Yes. Does it compete with existing mobile broadband? Yes. Can it compete with mobile and fixed voice with voice over IP? I don't know yet. Clearwire is just starting voice over IP. but WiMax Mobile that I know of, nobody's running voice over IP successfully. Can WiMax replace Wi-Fi for municipal wireless? And we'll talk about that. That's a very interesting thing for me because there might be a possibility there. Okay. Voice still pays the bills, by the way. I've been making a statement for a lot of years that there is not a single data-only terrestrial network in the world that ever made money. And that's a true statement. And it's still a true statement. Voice still pays the bills. 12 to 15% of wireless income by commercial operators is data.